Hi everybody, welcome to episode 28 of A Fern Between Us, a very special episode where we have winemaker Chris Padberg with us. Whoop, whoop.
Finally.
Hell yeah.
We are now 3 of the 4 owners. I'm Michelle.
I'm Jesse.
And that one's the Chris.
Chris
right?
Padberg. The other brother.
The other brother.
So we are also tasting some Aglianico today, 2 different vintages, and part of that is because we want to promote the new vintage that was just released. You wrote a beautiful wine club newsletter and released the new vintage. That was awesome.
Well, thank you.
And so a little bit about Chris, because over all these episodes you've gotten to hear way too much about Jesse and I. And so let's talk a little bit about who is Chris Padberg. He was, of course, born and raised here in Dixon with his brother, and then went to Taos High with both of us, actually, and then on to Tulane in New Orleans, where he was a history major, and then came back to finish his degree at UNM while learning winemaking and opening the winery with his brother, and did sommelier certification and working on his winemaker certification from UC Davis. He is also an avid marathon runner. He's a sailor these days, and a hands-on dad to son Maddox and daughter Chablis, which is always an awesome thing. Maddox is getting into running quite a bit and biking, and so you see them together out on the road, and I always love that. That's so cool. So we are, of course, going to be drinking a little bit as we go. So I just want to alert you guys.
Yeah.
The glass on the left is the 2017, and the glass on the right is the 2018.
Okay.
All right.
So hopefully they're on the...
Starting with the
right.
2017.
That's what I was doing.
All right.
We do have some very specific questions for Chris. But I was thinking maybe we can do it 2 different ways. We can do a little wine drinking and talk about the wines, and then do the questions. Or do you want to jump into questions? Do you need a little drinky booze
Libations
before we?
first.
Man, I think the drinking first, the questions later would probably be best for me. There is a couple things I want to say right here at the beginning before we get going on the drinking.
Yes, sir.
I do want to say that I love your show. I think it's really fun. It's really
your
cool.
show too.
I know it.
Our show.
And I'm honored to be a guest on the show. I'm honored to be part of it. That I want to say. I also want to give a shout out to my wife Liliana. Hi Liliana, I miss you.
Lily.
So those 2 things were the most important things. I just wanted to get that out of the way, and then let's drink, and then we'll get to the questions after.
All right.
And it
cool.
does sound like that we are going to get Lily to come on, and she's going to do a special episode around the Day of the Dead. I'm promising that I'm going to talk her into this. All right, so 2017 versus 2018.
Yeah, what do you guys get?
Were there any differences in the winemaking process at all, or did you use the same yeast, same amount of aging and oak? Any little nuances or things like that?
Oh, man.
Well, I have to know that we did use the same yeast because we were trying to emulate what we did in 17. I liked what we did in 17. The 18 did spend a little more time on oak because we finally got caught up and were able to age it a little longer. They are similar in a lot of ways.
They're quite similar. I feel like the 17 feels a little smokier, or maybe a little deeper tannins. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, in 2018 being
just
a
that
little
much younger.
yeah, is showing a little bit more full fruit instead of that
That's what
kind
it
of
is.
more raisined.
That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So then those spices and everything come out a little bit more as it's aged.
In the 17.
Mm-hmm.
But God, they're real similar.
Mm-hmm.
That's good job, man.
I think if that's what we were trying to achieve, I think we achieved it.
I definitely do too.
All right. I think these wines will last a long, long time in the bottle. I don't see them getting worse, for 15 years,
I think these really age beautifully. So Aglianico is from the southern part of Italy, or that's where it's kind of really known for being from, even though originally they think it was from Greece, but there's some debates with the DNA, so you never know. Maybe tomorrow they're going to prove something else, but
Nebbiolo of the South.
Exactly.
Nebbiolo of the South.
Exactly.
Early on, I toured southern Italy with my wife, and we drank Aglianicos up and down like crazy, but
down in the boot heel.
down in the boot heel, all over the place.
Bello.
On Bello Bello, we went there, stayed there a week, and hung out in this in a slate roofed cabin. It was sick. All these stone roads, walkways, you couldn't actually drive on them. It was amazing. But that's that. A lot of it was Aglianico country. It wasn't like a wine trip, so I wasn't specifically going in and doing the winery thing and all. This is pre-kids. This is a long time ago. So we were kind of more on party mode.
Was
relaxing.
that after our wedding, actually?
It was before the wedding, I think.
But on that same trip, the same Italy trip it was
a different
2 or
Italy
3
trip.
years before that. It was right. It was you and Lily's first trip.
It was hard. It was before. I think it was before we went to Argentina.
Wow.
We went in the wintertime. We went in January, and we went to Italy in January, freezing.
You went to Argentina before you got married?
Yes.
I did not realize that. Don't you learn something new all the time?
I believe both those trips were before we got married.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
one of the questions,
That's
which we
wild.
might as well jump into,
Yes.
is the question is: Lily is from Mexico, right?
Yes.
So
Right?
how did how did
She
you?
is not.
That's what we're telling
She is
people.
not from Mexico.
That's what we tell the public.
How did you and Lily meet? And how did you convince her to move to the USA? I thought that was a pretty great question.
Actually, more specifically, how did you get her to convince her to move to
Dixon.
New Mexico?
Okay. All are good questions. Well, we met New Year's Eve, Y2K on the beach in Barra de Navidad, which is it was kind of a love at first sight kind of situation. My brother Jesse was down there with me and a couple boys that we were partying, having a good time, trying to run away from the computer crash that we all thought was going to happen for Y2K, and never happened. But we made a great Mexico trip out of it anyway, and that was awesome. And happened to rent a hotel room next to Liliana and her friends who were doing the same thing. They were from the big city of Aguascalientes, and they were coming out to the little country surf town of Barra de Navidad out there on the beach because it's cheap and you can go surfing, and it's the closest beach to Aguascalientes. It's just right there. So we actually met a couple times and then fell in love on New Year's Eve that night. So it was, and we've just been together ever since. So that's the love story, which is a pretty good one.
Story.
So
It's a
it's
good story.
20 years and 9 months last night.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Wow.
20 years. So congratulations to
Hey,
Lily
cheers.
for hanging in there for 20 years and 9 months, making me happy every single day.
Every day?
Every day. There isn't a day I'm not happy.
All right.
So you guys did a long distance relationship, essentially going back and forth while she stayed in Mexico. You and Jesse were getting started with the winery. What was that turning point that got her to come up here?
Well, we did stay together, and it was a long distance relationship. It was really hard. I went down and visited her at one point just to make sure that it was still all real and everything was cool. And it was like, because it was kind of like a dream after you leave something like that for a couple months. Like, wait, did that actually happen? And then anyway, she was real. She was a real person. I couldn't believe it. So
And
had
she
a wonderful
enjoyed it
family.
too.
Yeah.
She enjoyed the weekend or the week at Mexico.
Yeah, it wasn't right. It wasn't one-sided, and she has a wonderful family, and we hung out with her friends and stuff like that. And then I came back, then I said, well, why don't you come up here and visit me and my family and hang out for a little while? I was going to school at UNM, as Michelle said. We were getting the winery together, so I had transferred back to UNM to be close, so I could come up and we could build a tasting room and start getting our ducks in a row here. And she did. To my surprise, she got a visa. She was one of the rare people that just applied for a tourist visa, got it, came up and visited me, and went back, and then came back again later. I want to say it was like 4 or 5 months later, and with the intentions of staying longer, which she did. And the rest
a very long time, I would say.
the rest is history. How she thought that ghetto-ass Albuquerque and tiny little Dixon were two wonderful places that you have to appreciate that she is a city girl. Aguascalientes is a huge city that's very modern, and it's there's not a lot of foreign tourism there, so none of us really know about it. You tell somebody and they have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing city, very affluent, and she was used to modern amenities more than we have in places like Dixon. Even Albuquerque is pretty hard to find what she was looking for, like an amazing shoe store, for example. She can't find this stuff here, so we did end up taking lots of vacations, and still do to this day, to go to cities and go to places that are different than here, and get her blood moving again.
So there wasn't any like magic words that you said that she was like, I think I do want to stay.
Oh,
I probably.
or was it? Do you feel like?
Uh-oh.
Do you feel like telling the McDonald's ketchup story?
No, I don't want to tell the McDonald's ketchup story.
Right.
I was a little rougher back then. I was a younger guy, and I wasn't as polished as you could see. This so polished today.
So polished.
I didn't have. I wasn't exactly opening doors for her. Put it that way. But she hung in there anyway. Somehow, maybe she saw a potential there, possibly
A diamond in the rough.
She saw a diamond in the rough. And, I think I'm not the diamond yet, but
maybe less rough.
But maybe less rough than the before. I would say so. She liked the idea. She liked the winery. She liked Jesse. She liked the family. She thought that there was a lot of good potential there. She saw that we were smart, had a good vision, and we're destined to work hard and make something happen here. So, and then when Michelle came into the picture, she loved Michelle as well. And the four of us make this amazing team. Yeah. And we always have. From the very beginning, we've been an amazing team, and I think that's really been a secret to the success of the winery. So, Lily's very shy, so she doesn't want to come on camera all the time. And we took a video the other day, for example, 2 videos actually. We took a video of the first day of Crush and the last day of Crush. And she was there. She was the one holding the camera for both of these videos. And you wouldn't know it because she won't get on the film. She won't turn the camera and show herself on the camera. I'm like, just turn it and say hi. You don't even, or just wave. And no, she was like, I'm the camera person.
A lot of you guys absolutely loved those videos too. That was great.
An interesting side note is that for the timeline is Michelle and I got together the same week that Lily officially returned or officially moved here for the, basically moved here.
Right,
yeah.
right.
At that point.
Right. Yeah, which was amazing because then...
The timing was really crazy.
And then for the rest of our lives, we do everything at the same time.
We got married at the same time. We started having babies at the same time. It's pretty ridiculous.
It's really awesome.
Right. We beat you the punch with the marriage, and then you beat us the punch with the kids.
Right? But narrowly in both cases.
It was pretty close. But so as you mentioned, getting started with the winery, and we've had so many amazing experiences, both good and crazy and scary sometimes. What has been the most surprising thing of owning a winery?
Wow, that's an easy one. I would say it was really surprising how long the road would be to make it to the point where you crest over that peak and start going down the other side financially. If you start a winery with no money, that is that. I wasn't like we did the math, 7 different ways, and somehow it never checked out what actually happened in the end. And not that we weren't successful, and not that we weren't successful right away. We were, but it's just you have to get to such a volume with that much debt load to actually make it finally. And so we're just fighting. You just picture the four of us just fighting, lean team going up this hill, getting further and further in debt for years before we finally start cresting over, and this is like drop down the other side, and we're like right there right now.
Just over the side.
Well, we were, and then COVID hit.
Well, right.
We'll see what happens. We'll see how the next year and a half play out here. But yeah, no, that's true. We had we were all on welfare, like food stamps, even like we were bottom of the barrel for years, even though we're sitting here employing a bunch of people but there's only
sounds so fancy.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in the door,
but we still couldn't
Pay
off the pay our debt and then also pay ourselves. So it took a very, very, very long time. Well into it was maybe 6 years ago I think we started actually making slightly more money than we were bringing than we owed or than we were paying out.
I remember, so we're in our 22nd year, and I remember, what was it, like, I think we were on food stamps for 6 years of that beginning part. And I remember feeling like it was a real win when we could just afford our groceries. It's look, I don't even need food stamps.
Woohoo!
Amazing, look at us rocking. We
Living
are
the
selling wine. So as we move into some of the more specific winemaking questions, I like this one. What are the differences in winemaking approaches between you and Jesse?
Interesting.
Are there any?
We do see eye to eye on most things. Did you want me to answer that or Jesse?
Yeah, no, that's for you.
Okay. We see eye to eye amazingly on a lot of stuff.
I think I answered that question earlier, but I don't remember. Or did I?
Yeah, no, this is a new one, but
okay.
We've heard plenty from you.
Yeah. It's just my job to razz everyone today.
Exactly.
Well, like I said, we do see eye to eye on lots of stuff. We were trained at the same time by the same people, and we've taken all the same classes. As far as winemaking is concerned, and so we'll try out a technique that somebody throws at us, or say I go to a convention or a meeting or whatever, and find out some new information. Well, I'll go back and I'll tell him, hey, how about this idea? We could try this new thing, or maybe they say if you add these tannins and some oxygen during your fermentation, that you'll get way more mid palate feel or something like that. And in general, we usually see the same way and say, okay, we could experiment with a small batch with something, but in general, what we have going, we're not going to change everything just because somebody came up with some idea until it's proven to me, by an experiment that we do on our own independently that we need to change in that direction. Let's see. I don't know. I'm trying to think of one thing. I think Jesse, I'm not such a stickler with having the fermentations be so cold. Jesse really, really likes them being really just right on the edge of where the yeast will still be alive, like with our whites, for example. And I'm always kind of let's warm them up a little bit. And he's come around to my way with that a little bit, is at least towards the end of the fermentations these last couple of years. And we've been hopefully trying to finish off the whites a little better so they don't re-ferment in the bottle or something crazy like that, which has happened to us a few times. I think if anything, it would just be a couple of very small things on the side. Mm-hmm. Maybe when we're blending, for example, we might disagree on one or two of the wines. I think we should go this way, or I think we should go that way, and then we'll do further blending and find, and then mm-hmm. Sometimes there's really we get to a point usually where if we do disagree, that we're at a point where there's no wrong answer at that point, and we both realize it. So you can let your ego down and just give them that win and be like, you know what, let's go with your blend. I think it'll be fine. We both have done that before.
Right.
At the same time,
and in that case, we're talking about like, oh, I think it should be 5%. Oh, I think it should be 10% Cabernet. Like it's such a small,
or 2% to 5%.
Sometimes
like you can barely tell the difference. Like nobody's gonna tell the difference here, guys.
I feel like we both give in that situation really easily. Like we're like, okay, sounds good. Let's go with that.
I think we both we work very well together. It's amazing. We have different personalities, but
we do have different personalities.
And they do look different, people.
You can see how handsome I am. Come
God
on.
damn it! I was gonna say an even worse bad word. Anybody that can't tell us apart just doesn't care. That's the.
Okay, so one of the things that I love that Chris touched on was that you guys are constantly taking classes and researching new things and then applying that. And I feel like the wines have always been really beautiful, but there is an incredible depth. And like you were saying, one of my favorite things that I feel like in over the years has been that development of that mid palate, which makes such a difference. And people don't realize this, and I know it's like super geeky, but it really is the make it or break it of when you taste a wine and you go, versus, and you want to come back and taste it again and again and again. I love that you guys are both really into wine education and applying that and trying new things. I think that's so awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No. Early on, a fellow winemaker whom I'm not going to say what his name is. I was telling him about the New Mexico Wine and Grape Growers Association, which some of the classes are great and some of them aren't, and but in general it's really fun. And every time you'll learn one thing. You'll learn one thing or try. They change
the educational conference.
Educational conference. Yeah, the conference. Sorry, I'm sorry. It's the conference. It's not the. Yeah. So I told this guy, like, are you going to the conference? And he said, oh no, we've got it figured out. There's nothing I can, like shutting off education. Like, but what if the science has changed on something? What if a philosophy has changed? If there's a new idea out there that you may want to consider? Not that you have to change everything you do because you go to the conference. I'm just saying you should hear what they're saying now.
Continuing education is huge. I think in almost all fields, but definitely in winemaking. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah.
Shutting yourself off to education is a mistake.
Absolutely.
Big time.
I think even when you feel like I've got this, that's when you should probably take another class.
Yes.
Right?
In any way, like marketing, winemaking, cooking, whatever it is.
Yep.
We've got one more question for you.
Okay.
And that is, because I went out of order, I have to now look. Oh, what was your first wine experience that made you want to be a winemaker?
First wine experience that made me want to be a winemaker. Wow, that's a great question. Well, as you may or may not know, me and Jesse grew up on the farm right here where the winery is. And
he's pointing because we actually live there too, and he's in our house. And so
this house, my parents' house is like 300 feet that way.
That's
right. And about 300 feet that way is the winery.
That's right. That's right. We use my dad's land to like put up some buildings and like start making the wine here, and we're still here.
Yeah,
we still have not vacated his property.
We don't have the millions, folks.
Not quite yet. Not quite yet. But extremely gracious our parents are for letting us use their land, and we couldn't have done it without them. That was super awesome. And we're thankful to this day to Jane and Dick Padberg. Thank you. Okay, so we actually, Jesse and I used to make wine as young as junior high school kids from the apricots and apples and stuff like that were growing on the farm of my parents here. Even my dad Dicko would join in with us sometimes and drop the equipment and break it on the ground every once in a while. We'd buy some we'd buy some new stuff and then a new graduated cylinder and whatnot. And then
I think it was always his too, and we'd make him buy a new one for us.
Say, hey man, you gotta buy another one of those because you just broke that last one. I wonder if he's tuned in and he'll remember that. Anyway.
Well, if they don't tune in, they always watch it later.
That's true. Yes.
So.
Yeah. So in one of those occasions, me and my brother, we've never gotten along perfectly well. We've always been close, but we've had ups and downs. We've had rocky times and throwing a few hodazos here and there, But whenever we were winemaking, we were always friends, and I remember that, and we were always close, and it was always fun, and that was always a good feeling in my heart, and I think it was a fun time for Jesse too, because we're processing fruit, and we're adding sugar and yeast and watching something bubble, and then a couple weeks later we're drinking bottles of something that was probably really disgusting, but
we didn't care. It had alcohol in it, and we were in high school.
We didn't care. It had alcohol in it, and we were in high school, and it was always it was like, oh sweet, we got a case of wine here, or we got a couple cases of wine, and I think it's all the way back to those points, some of those experiences that when I decided I wanted to become a winemaker, that's why it made so much sense. Later, when Jesse called me and said, hey, do you want to start a winery, when he was visiting those vineyards in France after college, and I was like, oh, of course. It's because we had this history together, and it was a happy history. It was a fun history where we got along and we did, we were cool. It was cool.
Well, and at that point, when you guys were in college, you knew that you wanted to come back to this area. You knew you wanted to work together doing something. And you had also thought of some other things that you had wanted to do together as a business. Wasn't one of them like something about sailing?
All right, so we had, we knew.
This is coming from some old memories. So I've known these guys for a long time, and not all of them were sober memories. So I can't quite remember.
In high school. In high school, all three of us were part of the same party group. Chris and Michelle were actually in the same class. I was 2 classes above them. But our greater group included the 3 of us. Chris and I stepped on each other's toes a little bit in high school that way, like sometimes, or we felt like we did, or something, and so we
get to the business.
Oh yeah. So, but as soon as I left for college, as soon as we were apart, we realized we really liked each other, like really liked each other. We had glorious moments before that, but it wasn't always just glorious. And so my first time back, we were like, dude, we should go to business together. I don't know what it's gonna be, but we should go into business together. And Chris totally agreed, and or I don't even know who said what to who, but we're like, well, what do we care about? What do we want to do? What could that look like? And we're like, well, what do we want out of life? And we knew we wanted a good schedule. We knew we wanted to be here in northern New Mexico, Dixon specifically, or Taos maybe, but probably Dixon even. And we wanted to not have our pay tied to the fact that we had to be here. No. And that, so those
good choices.
Those were all 3 things, and we're like, well,
lifestyle choices.
We've got all the time in the world. Let's just start thinking about it. So at some point we thought of a brewery, and at some point we thought of getting a boat, which is what you were asking, and hosting barefoot cruises, because that would be constant vacation in our minds. We would have had to be there every second to make that dollar, but maybe you could outsource some of that. I don't know. So we were actually thinking that. I had been on a sailboat.
You
for
realize
1
that
week,
we don't have anywhere to sail in.
No, not and the New Mexico thing was not going to be part of that, unfortunately. Right. But for a second that sounded kind of cool, and it still kind of does. I understand people that do it. It's amazing that they do that. But that didn't work out, or we never pursued that at all. But it could have been one of our potential futures.
I just love that you guys were like already thinking of different ways to go into business together. I think that's an awesome precursor to our story.
Chris was in high school and I was barely in college.
It's extremely
decided
rare.
That.
And I mean, we're alluding to bumping shoulders and hodazos and all this stuff. But in reality, we were really, really close the whole time.
We must have been tight.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Because we wouldn't have thought of that. We wouldn't have jumped onto that idea like, oh yeah, let's go into business together. I mean, most people I talk to who have a sibling say, I couldn't start a business with any of my siblings if you paid me $1 million. Like, that's usually the story I get. I mean, everybody loves their family, but it's like
to a point.
Well, especially that you guys do all of the jobs together. Mm-hmm. It's not that one of you's in the vineyard and one of you's in the winery. Right. It's that you guys do all of those jobs together. And then you get home, and then you talk to each other on the phone, and then we all go on vacations together. I mean,
right.
There's a lot of togetherness. It's really pretty remarkable.
It is.
Like your job, Lily's job, and me and Chris's job. It's a three peg deal. Like, me and Chris's job is more work, I guess, because we spend more hours than because we're times 2 or whatever, but we're side by side a lot of the day, whereas most days. Whereas
Michelle and Lily are not side by side; they're on different parts of the company.
But we spend all day texting each other.
Of course.
Because
well, there's that.
And you're
on the same side. You're in the front.
Yeah,
you guys are both on the front.
We just manage the business side and all of that, and so then it's like, I need your help on this project. Yeah. And she's like, okay, great, because I'm going to send you an email with all the details on that other project. It's awesome. It's really fantastic.
You could be in one office together easily.
Oh,
absolutely.
And but we also have a twosome, and then we have a foursome group text that goes on, 50 of them a day or some shit.
Jesse was really like that when Lily and I have lots of questions for them. Yes, please pour yourself more. So we are wrapping up. I'm sure this episode's actually going to increase your questions. So if you've got more questions for Chris, that just means we get to have him on the show again. So write them in. And of course, we're going to give you more information as we get closer to the episode with Liliana. And get to ask her lots of cool questions too. For next week, our wine is going to be Chardonnay, and our topic is going to be the movie Bottle Shock. Now, I can't tell you how many people asked for us to talk about Bottle Shock after we did the Sideways episode. So, we're going to do it. We love ya. We hear ya. Let's revisit Bottle Shock. It's a great movie. So that's your homework. You have to see it again. Get yourself a bottle of our Chardonnay, and we'll drink it with you next week.
All right.
All right, guys.
Cheers. Cheers. Thanks for coming, man.
Cheers.
I'm glad to be on. Thank you guys. You guys are awesome.
Cheers, everybody. Have a good one.